Hey there, you're listening to the Pursue Your Spark podcast. I'm your host, Heike Yates. We're here to help you live a healthy, fit, and confident lifestyle with tips, strategies, and interviews. Listen to the most inspiring women and how they dared to live the life they dreamed of and handle roadblocks in their path. Well, hey there, Heike Yates here, and welcome to another episode of the Pursue Your Spark podcast. My guest today is Tracy Herbert. Tracy and I met a few months back during the Heroic Public Speaking event up in New Jersey, held by Michael and Amy Port to help speakers hone their skills and make us better speakers and podcasters. Tracy took the stage and shared her story. I had goosebumps. I was crying. I couldn't believe what this woman had gone through and how she came out at the other end with a victory. So Tracy has type 1 diabetes and managed to live a healthy life with very little to no complications with her disease. And that's the story she's sharing today. Aside from that, she is just an amazing woman. She's warm, she's caring, and her big message is really to have hope. So guys out there who are listening to the show, you're listening to stories of women that have gone through very difficult times. Like I know many of you have. That's why you're listening to the show. Remember, there's hope. And Tracy reinforces that. So you're not alone. You have us here on the other side of the microphone and other women who encourage you all the way and give you hope to live the life you deserve. So listen today and enjoy Tracy Herbert. Hey everybody, today's guest is Tracy Herbert. She is a best-selling author of 2 books, Diabetes Tragedy to Triumph. Lessons from 40 years of beating the odds. And Ride of Hope, one woman's solo 3,527-mile bicycle ride that inspired the nation. Tracy has spoken at Harvard, has been interviewed on TV stations across the country, including the Dr. Oz Show. Tracy is a diabetes advocate, podcaster, and definitely adventurer. Tracy has had type 1 diabetes for over 40 years with no complications. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
I know you have a super busy speaking schedule and just got back from God knows where.
Well, actually, I've been local in Texas for the last couple of weeks, so that's been nice. At least I'm not having to leave the state.
Oh, okay. I thought you were I don't know where you were. I thought in Massachusetts or somewhere. Oh, okay.
Nope, I'm in the Lone Star State.
I see. Okay. Very cool. So here you are, and we're talking today about how to beat diabetes and fight for your life with you, Tracy Herbert. And I have to tell you, Tracy, your last name to me is Herbert. As a German, I was like, oh my God, I hope I say this right and correct in English.
There's several pronunciations, but Herbert is the way we go. So you had it right.
Fantastic. So we're talking diabetes, and I've heard your story, and I swear every time it makes me cry because it is such a heartbreaking, but yet a triumphant story, because your life changed completely at age 17.
Yes.
What happened?
I had been sick for several weeks to the point where I was losing weight. I was having trouble getting out of bed in the morning. 17 years old, and I was a very active 17-year-old. I was an athlete in high school. I mean, you name it, and I was doing it. Day after day, I was getting sick, and finally, I ended up being rushed to the emergency room, ended up in ICU, and this doctor walks in and he says, "Young lady, you've got juvenile diabetes." And then he went on to say, you're going to be dead in 20 years. You have horrible complications. You'll go blind. You're going to have your legs amputated. You have to go on dialysis. And then he went on to say, you're never going to be able to have children. And you're going to have to learn how to give yourself shots several times a day for the rest of your life because there's not a cure. And Heike, he turned around and he walked out of the room. It was devastating.
Oh my God. At age 17, no signs before.
No. And we didn't have any diabetes in our family. And what was so unique, which nobody found out for decades later, was that I had the flu. And when I got the flu, it attacked my pancreas. And I had the flu about probably 6 months prior to my diagnosis. And now that ended up attacking my pancreas, and my pancreas doesn't produce any insulin.
So when the doctor said this to you, what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Well, number one, I was so sick and they weren't even sure I was going to live. But I remember laying there thinking my life is over. I mean, he literally didn't give me any hope. And I kept thinking, now looking back on it, I kept thinking, who would give a child no hope? I mean, I'm a kind of believer that you got to have hope and able to do anything. I can do anything I put my mind to. And he kept saying, you can't. And I thought, this is crazy. So I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks. And learning to give myself shots and everything else. But every medical expert all said the same thing. They even told my parents, don't waste your money sending her to college because you're not going to get any investment, return on investment, which luckily my parents didn't believe that and listen to it because that was crazy.
Oh my God.
But I mean, everything was horrible. I went back to school. I was a senior in high school, and I was a returning letterman in my high school. And I went to the tennis coach because he'd called me down to his office, and he told me I was no longer on the team because I was sick. And I said, no, I can do this. This was before the American Disabilities Act or anything, obviously. And I said, no, I can play. It's just my life is a little different now. But I couldn't even try out for the team because I was sick. I mean, everything was so bad. Every negativity was happening in my life from the point that, I got kicked off the tennis team. I was trying to fit in as a teenager and learning to give myself shots. I couldn't eat any of the foods that what typical teenage kids eat. And it was horrible. And then a few weeks later, my friends and I decided to go to a movie, and we went to go see National Lampoon's Animal House. Love that movie. And so just like, you do with your friends, we were all going into the movie theater, and you walk in and, what do you smell? You smell popcorn.
Popcorn.
I knew I couldn't have any of it because back then, it was a very restricted, almost starvation kind of diet. And I'm going in thinking, okay, I can't have anything. But I went to the concession stand clerk and asked for a cup so I could get a cup of water because we didn't have diet soft drinks back then, nor bottled water. I mean, this is way, way long time ago. And she said no. And it was at that point in my life changed. And I broke down. I started crying. I'm running out of the movie theater screaming, why me? I mean, crying all the way home. And I got in bed that night sobbing so hard and uncontrollable. And I said, Tracy, you have two choices. You can be better or you can be bitter. What are you going to choose? And instantly, Heike, at that age of 17, I said, I'm going to be better. And 41 years later, I still every day work on how I can be better.
Yeah. Tracy, explain to the listeners, what is type 1 diabetes? Because now many of the people in our society have type 2 diabetes because they're overweight and eating unhealthy. But what is type 1 diabetes, and what are side effects and complications, and how would somebody know?
Well, type 1 diabetes, like you say, 95% of people with diabetes have type 2, which is, they used to call it adult onset. Lots of it has to do with obesity and the lack of movement and the kind of food choices we make. But type 1 is an autoimmune disease. So something is triggered in your body that causes your pancreas to shut down and quit working. And people with type 1 diabetes, from the moment they're diagnosed, they have to be on insulin because without insulin, we die. And when you have type 2 diabetes, oftentimes the doctors will start saying, let's work on your eating, get out and start moving more. And then you might have to transition into taking oral medication. But with somebody with type 1 diabetes, it's only insulin. And the only way you can get that is through insulin shots. Or now you can have, insulin pumps and things. A little bit different, but it's a totally two different types of diseases, but they're both listed as diabetes.
Yeah.
But the warning symptoms are almost the same. For somebody with type 1, you're extremely thirsty, but you also lose a lot of weight. Type 2, you typically don't lose weight, but you also are thirsty all the time. Your wounds are slower to heal. But with type 1, that's not the case. Used to be only children were diagnosed with type 1, and typically adults were diagnosed as type 2. But now we're finding even adults in their 60s being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So what do you think has changed?
Well, my conspiracy theory is that it's got to be the environment. There's so much toxicity in this environment that it's got to have something to do with that. Because why all of a sudden, again, I was diagnosed 41 years ago, and a small amount of people had diabetes. And now it's reaching epidemic proportions, not just in the United States, but around the world.
Yeah.
And I think, and type 1 diabetes is also skyrocketing, which makes you think, what else could it be? Yeah, we're eating foods that are unhealthy and oftentimes are filled with pesticides, but I don't believe that type 2 is caused by that, but I think there's got to be some kind of a correlation between what we have in the environment, the pollution in our water, all sorts of things that are causing autoimmune diseases at record numbers, not just diabetes.
Yeah, I observe that too from my end in the fitness industry. As people are getting larger in general, and the portion sizes are bigger. And like you said about the pesticides and all the chemicals in our nutrition and food that we have, is over all these years of where we sprayed the food and thought it was a great idea to get rid of the bugs, are now affecting us in our health quite significantly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what I think it is. And I wish that we could have a lot more research being funded to find out what's causing all these things that are happening. But there's just so many reasons why we can't. I'm not going to discuss that because it's a little too politics involved for this conversation.
No, we're not talking politics. This is all about health. So let's get back to you. You lay in bed and you said, dag nabbit, I'm going to go for hope. What was the next thing that happened?
I started researching at a local college medical school library. I spent time and time, week and week, I would go and study, which was not my typical lifestyle before my diagnosis. I was out having fun with all my friends and doing all the fun things that you do as a senior in high school. But I started researching thinking this is going to save my life. And I'm still researching today. So for 41 years, I started researching, but I kept thinking every time I would get down and I would watch, all my friends would go out for pizzas and Cokes and stuff like that after football games or basketball games. And this is something that you and your listeners are going to love, but I couldn't have pizza. And I would imagine, rats running over the pizza. And I would think, I don't want that. And you can work your mind and my mind and your listeners. Our minds are so crazy. We can make ourselves think that stuff is nasty, even when it's tempting. I was hooked on hot fudge sundaes before my diagnosis. I loved hot fudge sundaes. So I would imagine glass being broken up in the hot fudge sundaes. And I think, I don't want to eat that. So there's so many things like that I learned all before visualization even became popular. Yeah. I was learning that in the mid 70s.
Oh God, I never look at pizza the same way now, Tracy.
I know. You're welcome. And so many of my clients, they come up with their own little strategies when hearing my stories, and they're like, this is brilliant.
Yep. I love it that, before it even had a name, and it was a term, it's like, this is what I did. I'm like, okay, I can make this unappealing to me.
Right. And it's just amazing. Our minds are so powerful. When we put our minds to set something like that, we look at things totally different. Mm-hmm. And I was spending a lot of time researching and living my life, and ended up having 2 healthy children, which wasn't supposed to happen. Right. And my doctor, my endocrinologist, is a doctor who treats people with diabetes. He kept saying, you've got to write your book. You've got to tell your story. He says, I tell my other doctors about you, and they're like, no way. And so I started writing my book on his recommendation about 38 years after my diagnosis. And I started thinking, oh, wow, it's my 3M formula why I'm still alive. Because that's what he kept saying is, you got to tell people why you're still alive. Because that's every doctor I meet still today. That's the first question they ask me is, how are you still alive and what are you doing? And so I say, it's my 3M formula. And Heike, you're going to love this because it's mind. You got to have the right mindset, which you know that. Yeah. Mouth, learn to eat to live, don't live to eat, and move. We got to get off our chairs and move more. And it's brilliant, but everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But when you think, 3M formula, I can do this. Mind, mouth, and move. It transformed my life. And in my book, I just really, writing that book was actually therapeutic for me because I was able to really, after all these years of research, I kept thinking, oh, this makes sense and this makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then it just became, I was very fortunate because it became an international bestseller because my strategies are what every doctor tells people, mm-hmm. but they're so written in layman's terms that anybody can understand it.
Yeah, because when I saw the 3M formula, I was thinking of a sports car.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it is a sports car in that sense that it's mind, mouth, and move.
Yes. It's what we need to do. Obviously you know that, and everybody knows it, but it's like, it's a no-brainer. Yep.
We all hear it, and I said just yesterday that we say the same things over and over, and a lot of people don't seem to hear us, and we don't want to get our messages dumbed down, but it's like, people, you got to hear us. How simple can we make it to have you finally take action on the things that are necessary for you to live healthy?
Right. Because, our future selves are going to either thank us or they're going to say, what did you do to me? Because hopefully we're all going to live well into our later years in life. And, if you don't take control now, whatever age you are, I'm almost 60, but you almost be 80, whatever age, take it, make a change today. You just don't know the impact it's going to have in a few years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that goal setting is really important to you. What did that mean to you at this point?
Well, because I had a goal, and it's because I was probably a rotten teenager, but I wanted to show the doctors that, hey, I know more than y'all do. And so I had a goal, number one, that I was going to live my life expectancy of 20 years, hands down. And then when I just got pregnant and my husband and I were like, what do we do? And the doctors all kept saying, you can't have children. I'm like, I'm having a child. And then when I had my second child, because I said, I want to have 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And when I had my second child, and my doctor wrote a letter to the New England Journal of Medicine about my specific case, because I was the first patient in my area, and I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so it's a large metropolitan area, that had 2 healthy children with type 1 diabetes. But I told my doctor, I said, I had a goal. That was a goal. And when you realize, when you have a goal and you write those goals down, we're 42% more likely to reach those goals just by writing them down. And I'm a firm believer in the SMART goals and not just saying, hey, I want to lose some weight. No, I want to lose X number of pounds by X number of date. Or I want to go walk around the block this week, and then in 6 months, I want to try out for my first triathlon or do something like that. But every day you do something, and you can set up a goal, you write those goals down, and then you can reach those goals just by writing them down. Yeah. And I tell people, so many people say, I want to lose weight. Well, why do you want to lose weight? Well, I just want to fit into this dress. Why? You got to keep searching. Why? So goal setting for me has always been so important. And then when I rode my bicycle across the United States, I realized you got to break those goals down into smaller goals. And because when I left the Golden Gate Bridge, if I'd have thought, man, I got 3,500 miles to ride to New York City, I would have been overwhelmed. But every day I just said, I'm going for a bike ride. And so every day I went X number of miles, and the next day I went X number of miles, but then I got to the end of my ride. So when you have a goal, you expect setbacks because we all have setbacks, but you break those goals down, and it's so easy to accomplish any goal.
Yeah. And I like that you say, we all have setbacks, mm-hmm. and I just call them roadblocks. I don't even call them setbacks. It's like, oh, wait a minute, something didn't quite work so right. It doesn't mean that we're now stopping and we're frustrated and we're giving up. We're just going to figure out, like in your case, I imagine you had a flat tire, or you ran out of water and had to stop sooner one day, or things like that. It's just a stumbling block. But if the end goal in mind is what drives us, or what gives us that goal.
Right. Well, and I really struggled in Nevada because it was a really hard state for me to get through, because it was in and day out of never seeing anybody. It was record heat. And I was looking at my GPS and my map, and I thought, man, I could get out of this state, Nevada, in 50 miles. And I thought, I got to get it out of Nevada, instead of going like 129 miles. But then I looked at the overall map, and it would have added an additional 450 miles to my ride. And I thought, no, the end goal is New York City. So I said, keep staying in Nevada, which I did. But then the ultimate goal was I made it, and I didn't have to ride the extra almost 400 miles.
Now, how did you organize the ride? There has to be some planning involved.
The only plan, I had a couple of plans, and that was it. It was just, number one, I had to have some way to keep my insulin cold, because without insulin, I die. And so I told my husband, I said, I'm going to ride my bicycle across the United States. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. Let's do it. And what he did was he got a motorhome, an RV. And then, so he would work on his business when I would leave in the morning, and then we'd meet up for lunch or something. And then he'd tell me, this is where you're going to spend the night tonight. And so we would talk like that. But I knew I had 2 TV appearances already scheduled that I had to make. And then I knew I was going to have to hit those 2 towns. I knew I had a speaking gig at an American Diabetes Association camp. So I knew I needed to get to Salt Lake City, Utah on a certain date. And then the rest of the time, the TV reporters were calling my husband and saying, hey, we heard about your wife. We want to get her on the TV show. Okay. So he texts me or something and say, okay, now we're going to, Des Moines instead of Sioux Falls. It was just those kind of things. So come, start heading this way, and I'll meet up with you later. It was crazy. Wyoming was a very easy state for logistics, because I was able to ride on the interstate. So I was riding on Interstate 80, but every 76 miles there's a rest stop. So I'd be like, okay, I'll see you in 76 miles. But I didn't plan it as well as I should have. And one day I got so lost. It was so crazy, Heike. I left Trunky, California, and I was heading to Reno, Nevada, and it was only supposed to be 3 hours. And I'm looking at my watch thinking, okay, I should be really close to Reno. And there was nothing. I was out in Nowheresville. And I ended up carrying my bicycle over a mountain, over huge boulders, no cell phone service. I finally got to the top of this mountain, and I got my cell phone was working again. And I called my husband. I said, I am so lost. And he said, oh, you're on the wrong side of the mountain, which I wasn't. But because you know how it is when the mountains, your map doesn't always show up the correct way with your family, where's my family kind of app. And so anyway, it worked out fine, but it took me almost 7 hours to get to Reno instead of 3.5 hours.
Oh, that's frustrating.
So yeah, those kind of things would slow me down, or those kind of things would happen. And then when I got the call from the producer at the Dr. Oz show, I was in Chicago, and realizing that I needed to slow things down quite a bit, I really slowed down my ride from Chicago until I got to New York City.
So how long did you take for the whole ride?
It took me 93 days. Wow. I could have easily done it in 6 weeks, easily. But I kept saying, if I can do this in 90 days, then my job will be done. Because I left Texas saying, I'm celebrating. But by the time the first week into the ride, I received a message from a mom who said, my 6-year-old daughter has lost hope on life. Oh. And she went on to tell me she'd had diabetes, type 1, just like I have, for about 2 years. And she was sick and tired of all the finger sticks, sick and tired of all the shots. And this little girl and her mom saw my Facebook post. And they went out and bought a map of the United States. And the little girl cut a picture of my head and my bicycle and put it on the map. in her living room. And this little girl tracked my ride the entire time. And I thought, this is about children now. So I went from going, yay, Tracy, you're alive, to how can I spread hope and awareness for children that, hey, this old lady can do it, which I don't consider myself an old lady. That's a mindset thing. But to these kids, I want them to realize I'm a grandma. If I can do this, what's stopping you? And that's kind of where my passion became. And then also talking with people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, saying, y'all do not want to get on insulin. Take control of things now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just read about your ride and heard about it. I was like, oh my God, all by yourself.
Yeah, all by myself. And we shot a documentary, and that's we're still working with several big things right now on that. I can't share that yet, but
no.
I have a lot of footage, and of course, I wrote my second book was based on the ride across the country, and I left feeling. What people always say, were you afraid? And I'd say, no, I really wasn't, because I was so determined. Because by the time the first couple of messages started coming in from parents saying, oh, you're inspiring my kids, or you're inspiring us, my kids can do this, I started feeling like empowered. You know how it is. You feel like, I got to do this. If not for me, then for everybody else. And it was the best 93 days, probably in almost my entire life, because I had horrible experiences. I rode through the south side of Chicago, which is the number one murder capital in the United States. I rode through all by myself again. I rode through some really bad parts of the country. I rode through record heat. One day it was 118 degrees. But you know what? Every day I was like, I can do this. And each mile I would get stronger, not just in my body, but in my mind, going, this is so cool. Look what I'm doing. All these doctors said I couldn't. I'd be dead. I'd have my legs amputated. I'd go blind. And I'm like stronger than most people, younger than myself.
Yes. That was just impressive. When you told me your story, I'm thinking, can I do that? Yeah. Yes, Tracy can do it. Absolutely.
Right. Yep, you can.
Maybe not right now.
But we're all different. That's what I tell people, because when I'm trying to help people get started in an exercise program, because my mission is to stop the epidemic rise of diabetes. And just like you, though, Heike, I tell people, I'm like, don't go out and expect to run a marathon tomorrow, but go out and walk around the block. I've got to tell you this story because you'll really appreciate this. I met a lady when I was riding into Sacramento, and I was waiting for the light to turn green, and she was sitting at the bus stop, and I just had that gut feeling to go talk to her. So I got off my bike and I just said, hey, how are you? And she said, oh, it must be nice to ride your bike across the city. I'm like, well, I'm actually going to New York City. And she started saying, I'm so embarrassed. And I said, really, what's up? And she said, I'm waiting for my brother. I can't walk around the block to go home because I just can't walk that far. And she was morbidly obese, and she was really young, probably in her mid-30s. And I said, oh, so, the coach in me came out, and I said, well, could you walk, next door? And everything I was saying, she'd say, I can't. And I said, can you walk to your driveway? And just that look, just for a second of hope, when she says, I think I can. And I said, okay, walk to the end of your driveway and rest and walk back up to your front porch. And then take a break. And then tomorrow do it twice. And every day do a little bit further. And then when you go there, go next door. And, every day go a little bit further. When I was riding just about a week before I got into New York City, I got a message from this sweet lady. And she said, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. That's 3.1 miles. I know. And 3 months earlier, she couldn't even walk around the block to go home.
Fantastic. That is such a great story.
Yes.
All you listeners, share this podcast. Everybody needs to hear this message from Tracy.
Because you can do anything. I mean, people think I can't, and we all have that stinking thinking. But when you replace it with, I can do that, then your life is just changing.
Yep, absolutely. Because you had such a great response you shared with me. You started your own podcast.
Yes, right. When I was finishing up the ride, people kept saying, how can I keep hearing from you every day? Because I would do Facebook Live in the morning and the evening. And sometimes they were crazy silly. Sometimes in the middle of the day, I'd say, I'm lost, or I'm hot. What do I do? I just say, I just need somebody to talk to. And so because of that, I decided, okay, I'm going to do a podcast because I really feel like we've got to stop the epidemic rise of diabetes. And if not me, then who? And so I started my podcast, and then I'm just released episode, I think it was 92 or 93 just this week. And so I do a weekly podcast, and sometimes it's just interviews. Sometimes it's incredible research I've just discovered, but mostly it's just little things, maybe adding water instead of drinking a Coke, and how to replace your soft drinks, or how to add more vegetables in a fun, creative way. It's just every week is something uniquely different.
Mm-hmm. And your podcast is called the Diabetes Breakthrough Podcast.
Your Diabetes Breakthrough. Yes, your diabetes.
So we put that link in the show notes so people can sign up for your podcast and find you.
Great.
I listened to the interview that you just recently had, and that was, how old was the person that you interviewed?
Oh, are you talking about the young boy?
The young guy, yeah.
Yeah, 14 years old. Yes.
He was so respectful and so polite, and I was like, that he didn't say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Yes. He's a great young guy. I've just been so fortunate to have met him.
Yeah, he was like, and then it was a great story how, when you said, how's your family dealing with you having diabetes and the influence about this. I think it's a really great podcast.
Well, thank you. And because it's so interesting, because it's a family affair, because when you have somebody in their family with diabetes, especially type 1, the whole family has to know what to do, because there are a lot of things that can happen that can have somebody, we lost a little girl during my ride, 9 years old. She spent the night at a girlfriend's house and never woke up. Her blood sugars dropped so low. And those things happen all the time. So it's critical that the family, the friends, the neighbors, everybody knows what to do when you have diabetes.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good advice. That's because you don't think about this. I mean, I don't know anybody personally that has diabetes, at least at this point in my life. So these are good tidbits to hear, and reality checks too. If you know somebody that has diabetes, perk your ears up, and this is what these people need or might need when they stay over at your house, like in the story that you just told.
Mm-hmm. And I also offer on my website, lots of free resources that people can download, because again, my mission is to stop the epidemic rise of diabetes. And we do have great medical care in this country. But the thing is, though, our doctors and our nurses are so busy that they don't have time to spend with patients often like they should. Doctors are in business. They want to help people. They just don't have the time to help the people. Nurses are the same way. And so that's why I offer so much of these 41 years now of researching that I offer on my website, because it's like, and then I always tell everybody, especially when I work one-on-one with my coaching clients, I'll say, I double dog dare you, which is this is a Texas thing, but go talk to your doctor. And if your doctor doesn't like any of these strategies that we're going to work, then we're not going to do it. And then they're like, my doctor says this is the best thing ever. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to do, is help people realize that talk to your doctor, make sure it's the right thing. And then, these people, your listeners, they can download free resources, or they can call me. I am so passionate about helping save people's lives that I tell people, call me. That's why I put my phone number everywhere. I will talk to you for 15, 30 minutes and give you some pointers. And then you can say, let me go talk to my doctor about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you have on your website, what's the name of your website?
TracyHerbert.com. That's TracyHerbert.com.
So you offer free sources, and what other services do you offer?
Well, I do coaching. I do both group coaching and one-on-one coaching. And of course I speak. I do all sorts of unique things, but my heart is to get the message out that you can have hope no matter what you're struggling with. And I went and spoke at American Heart Association, but it was a heart event. And I sold out of all my books, my diabetes books. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's really odd. So I was talking to the event planner, and I said, I almost didn't even bring my books. And one of the ladies was glancing through my book, and she was saying, oh yeah, this is for heart disease, this is for cancer, this is for diabetes. And so, our bodies are so crazily, we're all intertwined, and it's all healthy resources. It's nothing, there's no snake oil salespeople. I'm not that kind of a person that says, take this magic pill and you're going to be cured. No, you get out there and you start eating the right kind of food, you start moving more. And so because of that, I'm really believe that there's so much bad information out there from people that coach and things that say, well, you can take this product and you'll be cured. No, that's not what this is about. Find something. And so I was shocked when my book sold out at a heart event, because the event planner said, no, it makes sense because these are all the same things that everybody else is doing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so important to find real and accurate and researched information. And I was talking on Instagram about something like this today, that with all the fake stuff that's out there, and people are making you believe that this is what's curing you, or what makes you lose weight, or what makes you happier, this is what the thing is. But it's like your 3M formula is hitting all these marks, no matter how you look at it. In my point of view, the mind, the mouth, and the move is really the key for everything to success and to saving, in your case, many lives.
That's right. And what's even more interesting, and I know you agree with this because I know you're in the health world too, but I feel better. I'm not quite 60 yet, but I have more energy now than I did in my mid-30s.
Yep.
Because I didn't really develop my 3M formula until about the middle part of my 30s. And it's interesting because people say, oh man, how do you have so much energy? I'm like, well, I get a good night's sleep. I drink a lot of water, and I have the 3M formula. And so it's so crazy because at first people say, I can't. I have to have my donuts, or I have to have my pizza, or whatever that is. And I'm like, again, double dog dare you to give it up. And then, go through that 6 weeks of, really detoxing. And then you're going to have so much more energy. You're going to feel so much better, and you're going to look better because your eyes are going to start becoming more focused again. Because when we eat that kind of processed food, it tears our body up.
Yep. Absolutely. Tracy, what's next for you?
Well, I'm not quite sure when I'm going to do it, but I'm planning a bicycle ride from Canada to Mexico because unfortunately the epidemic rise of diabetes is continuing to rise. And I met a little boy, and his mother said I can share, I can talk about him. Mm-hmm. His name is Hayden. And I met Hayden when I was riding my bicycle through Chicago, and he also has type 1. And Hayden and his mom drove an hour and a half one way just to have dinner with us because he had never met somebody with type 1 diabetes. And Hayden came in carrying my first book, and he was so proud. He was telling everybody, I'm going to meet her. She has diabetes just like I do. Well, Hayden and his mom and Fred and I, my husband, we sat there and had dinner that night. And Sarah was telling me that she was having to wake up Hayden every 2 hours, every single night for 2 years to test his blood sugar. Mm-hmm. And because, again, children die in the United States more at night than they do any other time because their diabetes, their blood sugars drop so low. Yeah. And I said, you don't have a continuous glucose monitor? And she said, no, I can't. We just can't get it with our insurance. And I left that night and I said, okay, Tracy, we've got to do something. Quit saying we, you need to do something. Because I kept saying we, the whole entire country. No, I'm my own person. So I started a foundation, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit approved by the IRS. That was more difficult than it was riding my bike across the United States. But this foundation is putting the continuous glucose monitor in children's hands. That's going to save lives. And Hayden just received his first one about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
So what's the foundation called again?
It's called Diabetes Technology Advocacy Foundation.
Okay, so we're going to put this in the show notes as well so people can find that as well.
Oh, thank you. And what a continuous glucose monitor does is it tells your blood sugar. It's a device that you put in your body. I mean, you have to implant it every 7 days, but you do it yourself. You don't have to go to the hospital or anything. But then you can read your blood sugars on your phone, and it tells you what your blood sugars are every 5 minutes. And
Wow.
what's so amazing is the alarms go off. So if your blood sugar goes super high or super low, alarms go off. So Hayden's mom can wake up in the middle of the night and see what his blood sugar levels are. Or if he's dropping critically low, like Sophia did, who died the summer I rode my bicycle across the United States, she will get alarms and she can wake him up then and tell him, okay, you got to have a little bit of juice or whatever he needs to have to make sure his blood sugars come up. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. There's so much need out there, and I just don't have the resources yet. I mean, we're able to help a few children, but my goal is to ride maybe from Canada to Mexico and do it as a fundraiser to raise money for the foundation.
Wow. Yeah. Keep us posted on that when that's starting. And I know I'll follow you on all your socials. So let our listeners know, how can they reach you, what social media, email, and website, and where they can find your books.
Okay. My books are on Amazon, and it's Diabetes, Tragedy, Triumph, and then also Ride for Hope. Amazon will cover that, carries those. And then my website is TracyHerbert.com. That's TracyHerbert.com. And on the website, I also offer an email series for 31 days to optimal health. So for 31 days, you get just quick little snippets of something you can do to take care of yourself. And, it may be a positive quote and, hey, add some water today, or try this, or get some extra sleep. This is a great way to get some sleep. And those are fun. Everybody loves those because they're quick, easy. And everybody says, I open it first thing in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then, but I also have other things, how to lower your A1C and how to lose weight and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. And what else did you ask? I'm sorry.
I'm Tracy Herbert.
Yes. You can find everything about Tracy Herbert.
Perfect. That makes it so much easier, because sometimes people have all different names for their different social, and it gets a little confusing.
Yep, everything is Tracy Herbert, and my name is spelled Tracy. That's the thing that throws most people off.
Yep. Oh, I got that right when I spelled it. I'm so proud of myself. Tracy, it was a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for sharing all these amazing, inspiring stories and spreading the hope that we hopefully one day we're going to eradicate diabetes once and for all, or at least make things much better for everybody.
I hope so, and I agree. And thank you so much for having me on the show. It was wonderful to see you and hear from you again.
So we'll talk to you soon. And before I forget, all the listeners, please reach out to us on Instagram at Tracy Herbert or me, Heike Yates, or the Pursue Your Spark podcast, and let us know what you think about today's episode, today's story. So share with us any questions you may have, but reach out on social to us so we can respond to all of you. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
So, what do you think? Wasn't that an incredible story? I did have to get my tissues out again, but that's okay, because Tracy is giving us so much hope. So please follow up on getting in touch with us on Instagram. So reach out to Tracy Herbert and to me on the Pursue Your Spark podcast and let us know what you think. Ask any questions. We are more than happy to help you out with anything that you might need help with when it comes to diabetes in this case, and other health, fitness, and nutrition tips. And with that, I'm taking a little bit of a break. It's August here in DC, so I'm taking the month off to regroup, record new content, and just chill out a little bit. I hope you do the same, and I'll see you back in September. Ciao.